of the most common topics that come up in a lot of my friends' conversations is, I have no idea what I want to do in life. And I think that's something that I struggle with. It's something that I know a lot of people our age struggle with. And it's something our generation is actually privileged enough to even confront. So there are a lot of options out there, but inside of us, there's this decision paralysis. There's this panic sense of helplessness, of not knowing what to choose. And it's really, honestly, quite scary to be in that situation. Every once in a while, we come to major crossroads in our life where we actually have to make decisions that could potentially change everything. And when we're there, how can we make decisions that cross the Rubicon, that challenge the norm, that make bold decisions, and to write an extraordinary chapter in our lives to make it worth living? We could always choose the safer path, the one that allows us to live easier by thinking about what is, than to walk the more precarious path and possibly crash and burn at the end. But that's not what this conference is about. This conference is about how you can have the courage to make the more precarious decision, to walk the more precarious path, knowing that you might crash and burn, but hopefully make a life out of it. Just as Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his army, he started a civil war, he won the civil war, and he built an empire. So then the question is, how can we have the courage to actually make bold decisions like that when it comes down to it? How can we choose the path knowing that we might crash and burn at the end instead of the safer one? The thing is, it boils down a lot to who you are and who you want to be, your identity. We are all brought up to believe, that human beings make our decisions based on a lot of facts and figures and data. But the thing is, the human brain makes decisions heavily based on emotions. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, he found groundbreaking discovery when he studied people who damage the part of the brain that generates emotions, and they are perfectly healthy otherwise, they have perfect reasoning, but yet they couldn't make sound decisions. So he found that decision making is hugely emotional and not just logical. So when we make big decisions in life, what we want to do, definitely emotions is key. And our emotions grow from, they ignite about, and they grow around our identity. Identity is a big word, but ultimately it's who you are and who you want to be. If you simplify that even further, it's the story you tell yourself about yourself. And that's only something that you can discover for yourself. So a lot of people, we're 20-something, haven't experienced much of life, nothing much to look back on, a lot to look forward to. Nobody's going to fault us for not knowing what our story is. So how can we think about this quarter-life crisis, and how can we think about crafting this story? So after reflecting on a lot of things that I've seen and I've heard from wonderful mentors, I've kind of distilled it down to 4-part process. And I call it the 4 Ds. Starts from the first D. The first D is disinclination, then discovery. After discovery, you go into desires, and finally decisions. So let's start with the first one, disinclination. So Singaporeans love to complain, right? So the next time we find ourselves complaining, whether it's verbally or in our mind, how can we turn that into something constructive? Being specific about what causes that disinclination, that discomfort, the resentment, the resistance, and we all have this in our lives. Being specific about it and crystallizing it helps us be clear about the decision at the end. So when you have these clear disinclinations in your life, you can move to the next phase, which is discovery. And in discovery, what you do is you take all these disinclinations and then you think about scenarios where these disinclinations are completely removed, and even better, think of scenarios where you could not further improve. And with these discovery, you have a lot of possibilities out there that you can look for. And at this stage, what's important is to talk to people, go out there, do internships, take on side projects, side hustles, volunteer your time, and it's going to take a long while. But what's important is to give yourself that chance and do justice to yourself by letting yourself explore opportunities out there Something I've observed a lot in myself and my peers, we're all living in our own bubble. We get carried away trying to make a life out of a very limited career spectrum that we limit ourselves into too prematurely. A lot of opportunities out there might be the perfect fit for us, but we don't even step out of this invisible barrier to go out there. So I come into the university, I know I'm going to do marketing, and then I ignore everything else. Or I know I'm going to do banking, and I ignore everything else. But gradually you start to realize, hey, maybe this is not for me. And that's when you really land yourself in misery that you want to get out of. So skip that whole process and start from the discovery phase. A lot of times when we talk to clients in my startup and in the work that we do, helped me realize something, that we have a lot of misconceptions and misperceptions. Young people like you and me have preconceived notions about certain paths, certain industries, certain companies, which actually isn't true in reality. And what's important is to find the channels that allow us to uncover these misconceptions that we don't even know that we have. So after you've actually realized you're in this discovery phase, don't be so eager to rush to the end to make a decision, because you're just shortchanging yourself if you don't spend enough time in discovery. So after that, if you got your disinclinations, you got your discoveries, the next one you move to is your desires. There are certain possibilities in those that you've discovered that helps you feel a bit lighter, more energized, more enthused, things that you feel a bit more curious about. Narrow them down, and you realize that within this bunch of desires, you can actually crystallize it further, and that's when you move into the final step of decision. You can actually crystallize and articulate your desires, and to make sure that after exploring so much, this is what you really want for yourself. And it's who you are, and it's who you want to be. This entire process is probably going to take quite a long time, and there's a lot to do in this limited time. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, try a lot of things. You're going to take a lot of random side hustles. And the best thing you can do for yourself is to find a great mentor. Someone who has been there, who has done that, who can give you a bird's eye view on different industries, different paths. Someone who can give you hindsight advice on mistakes that he has made so you can take the shortcut. So you can avoid all the roundabout routes and really get straight to discovering what you want for yourself. A lot of young people, like ourselves, we feel hindered by the fact that we don't have enough experience. But what we lack in experience, we make up for in attitude and a spirit of willingness to learn. One of my friends, he's 25 years old, he dropped out of school halfway through by choice. And within 7 months, he learned on his own what other people 3-4 years into the industry don't even know about. And that's purely by immersing himself in what he wants for himself, things he's interested in, he's inclined towards. And that's something that all of us can do for ourselves. So I hope that the 4Ds gives you an approach to thinking. I hope it gives you something that you can lean on when you feel that you don't know what you want to do in life. And hopefully it gives you higher chances of building the life that you want for yourself, more than any lottery can do for you. Thank you so much.